we had a bit of a consternation as to which episode we're on, but we think it's episode 11, and we reckon we're about lockdown week 3,502. That was just a rough estimate. Yeah, something like that. It's the January the 52nd. We're in the year 2050. So that's how it's feeling in this 34-degree heat in the UK right now. So thank you so much to the suppliers that have joined us on this very hot day, the hottest day of the year, in their offices rather than out in their gardens, to talk about what's been going on for them. For those of you who have been keeping with us throughout the last few weeks of Lockdown Coffee, firstly, thank you. And secondly, you'll know that we've been doing lots of talking to operators, to roasters, we've spoken to baristas. Last week we had that amazing marketing panel, and I do know and have heard lots of great feedback about the playbook, so thanks for everyone who has been downloading that. Well done you. But we haven't really talked in depth to suppliers other than roasters, and we thought it was about time, because guess what, guys, hospitality has been well and truly stymied in the last sort of 13, 15, 26 weeks, whatever it's been, and it's not just the operators that means it's affected. Obviously it's affected all the suppliers that have been supplying to food service, and specifically for us to specialty coffee. So I am joined with a veritable wealth of amazing suppliers, all of whom I love dearly. So I shall start with Kristina, Komlosiova and Stephanie Johnson from Pollen and Grace, wave girls. We have Heidi Reader from Allan Reader, if you'd like to wave as well, Heidi. There we go. We have Declan Mackle from Alpro UK, yay, and Neville Saunderson from Biotiful Dairies, who he is the head of non-grocery, I should say. And they join myself and the wonderful Max Dubiel, who is always at my side in these Lockdown Coffee episodes, to talk what the hell has been going on for all of you in the supply side of things. Let's start with just each of you giving a quick description of what your businesses do, so the benefit of, I mean, some of our audience will know, but not everybody will know, so just give a quick overview of how you supply the food service industry and exactly what it is you supply. Let's start with Steph and Chris.
Thanks, Anya.
Okay.
Just heads up, Chris and I do tend to finish each other's sentences. Makes it slightly harder when we're not in the same room and on Zoom, but we'll do our best to make it work. Yes, as you said, we founded Pollen and Grace, a little over 5 years ago now. Pollen and Grace is a natural plant-based food brand. We also manufacture, so we're the brand and the manufacturer, and we supply branded, natural, vegan ready meals and snacks to grocery and the out-of-home markets.
Fantastic. Heidi, tell us about Allan Reader.
So I work for Allan, who's my dad. Dad's had the business now for 48 years. I've worked with him for 30 of those. I was obviously 2 when I started. And we supply mainly dairy, but also non-dairy items to coffee shops, restaurants, hotels, airline caterers, and as I say, have done for 48 years now.
So that means you've been doubly hit with the airline and hospitality. Oh, crikey. Okay.
Yeah, there wasn't many ticks left.
No. You needed was gyms and nightclubs, and that was it.
Oh, completely. Thankfully, we do also supply hospitals and nursing homes, but it was quite a small proportion of what we do. Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, that's what we do.
Great. And I mean, if anyone doesn't know what Alpro is, Declan, tell us a little bit about your business.
I work for Alpro. We manufacture plant-based food and drink, traditionally known as dairy alternatives, but I think the way plant-based has been growing over the course of the last number of years, it's become a food category of its own in its own right. Alpro is 40 years old this year, and I've been working with Alpro for 20 of those. So we started off, the company was called Alpro Soya, but during the course of the last 10, 15 years, we've been including other ingredients into the food and drink we produce. Fantastic. And we have 3 brands, Alpro, Provamel, and Avega, which is our sports nutrition brand.
I was going to ask quickly about brands, because obviously I'm aware that there is more than just Alpro out there in the world. And Neville, tell us about Biotiful.
Well, hello. Yeah, so I'm Neville. I look after the non-grocery side from Biotiful's perspective. So probably the reverse of Alpro in the fact that we sit in the dairy side. And we are the market leaders in kefir. So it was a niche trend. It's now mainstream. So I'm responsible for literally taking the success we've got in grocery and bringing it into the lovely world of out of home and all the coffee chains through to high street. So yeah, joined in March, just I think when someone pushed a "we're shut" sign on most doors. So it's been fun, but we're certainly making some progress.
Yeah, I was literally about to say that poor Neville joined the company, I think, week before lockdown, because we had a conversation on lockdown day, in fact.
That's right. That's right.
Conversation, and it was like, okay. So what do you do in out of home when it's all closed and nobody wants to do anything but work out how on earth they're going to pay their staff? So,
funny enough, network is the answer.
Well, actually, that does lead us to the next question quite nicely, because all of you have out of home clientele. Some of you have FMCG, so retail businesses that also had to continue. And when it's a bigger company, so for Declan and Neville, probably not so involved in that, but for Steph and Kristina, probably hats on, gloves on in the plant, actually making it as well, I should think. So when it came to lockdown all that time ago, those 3,000 weeks ago, I'm not going to sort of go into detail about what happened lockdown week, because it was so long ago now. Most of you have already come to the point where you've adapted and made a difference and actually sort of carried on. So what I want to know is, what did you do in order to adapt and move forward during that time? And as Neville started that, you can carry on talking about how you've adapted in the last.
Oh, thank you. Well, in all seriousness, I think, Anna, you and I picked up because we saw a great fit for the product in the with coffee environment, and then and also high street. So we had a priority of targeting those areas first. So obviously with lockdown, my strategy changed completely. So we spent a lot more time actually focusing in on probably three aspects. One, looking out to how we could support key workers and just like the frontline teams with some of our product. It's very difficult when you're a chilled provider to get product to the guys that are making the difference. So that was the number one aim for us, and I'm really pleased with what we achieved. Number two was we moved strategy completely over to convenience and online, to make sure that we had a really strong plan and cut through. And again, really pleased with where and what we've achieved. And then the third, as I said before, was network. Just reaching out to people inside and outside of network, talking to people, understanding and listening. And I think for me, the biggest takeout for me was listening before even starting to talk about anything more, building the relationships and just really empathizing with what some of these people are facing. So our with coffee plan is there, but it's going to take a bit of time, but that's fine. And we just remained agile, which I think is really, really important right now. So
I think you touched upon something that I think is critical, actually, because one thing that's come out of lockdown, I think, is a lot of lessons learned on how to improve how you do business, right? And a lot of new suppliers and existing suppliers can go into a new sector and rush ahead and just go in with the sell, sell, sell mentality. And what you've said there just made me think that, I think in terms of a strategy, actually going out and slowly listening first is absolutely critical, isn't it? Find out what your target market wants. And many companies skip that, don't they? They go straight into, we've got this product, we think it's great, it's in Anya Marco's trend report, because, you know, everything that you guys do is all in my trend report, I have to say. So therefore, you know, you should have it in your store, without actually going, what are you about? What do you need? And so this has given us all an opportunity, hasn't it, to actually start listening to, you know, those sort of changes and what people actually want. Would you agree with that? I mean, everyone's nodding, so I'm going to say, yeah, you agree.
Well, I'll start and then I'll finish quickly to let everyone else kick in. But yes, from my perspective, it's almost given us a bit of time, a bit of headspace. Some of the lack of noise, I think, has allowed people to stop and reflect. And you know, I was taught by one of one of my really strong managers, you don't walk in with your presentation, you walk in with a blank piece of paper, and then you just ask questions, and then at the end see where the opportunity is. So really, from my perspective and the team's perspective, we spent a lot more time listening and asking questions. Now we're getting into the point of we feel we have a fit, but yes, I'd say the last 10-12 weeks has been turning over stones and just really listening and seeing how we should adapt and be ready.
So how have others of you adapted during this time? Declan, what's been happening with sort of Alpro, Provamel, and the sort of other side of things in the food service sector for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very similar situation with Neville just outlined, and I think it's just prior to lockdown, we started to think about, looking at new areas in which we could do business. And we often talk about doing some research and having insights to go in there. Have we got the right products? Have we talked to the right people? But I think this has given us a really good opportunity to really get into that in more detail. And also go back and talk to our business as well about, what is this industry about? How can we support? Are we doing the right things? So it's given us a real good chance to do that. So you've got an element of that, of course, but trying to keep in contact with people has been the real challenge, and that's been good as well. Maybe from a wholesale side, it could be Allan Reader, it could be other partners we have, but also we know for some of our customers who have been in furlough, it's been difficult. But trying to keep in contact with those who are working, let them know what we're doing, that we're here to support. What do you need whenever we're going to see our way through this? What do you need now? But we'll touch, I think, of that a little bit later on as well. So it's really just getting closer and closer to not only our customers, but also internally as well. So I think Alpro, the team as a whole, could understand even food service and coffee better than they would have done before, because we've been doing a lot of talk about that and telling people what's going on. So we've used that opportunity to do that. And
it's almost like it's been sort of handed on a plate, isn't it? Here's some time, do good things with it.
I think it's been lucky. I think as people who've worked from home and are used to doing it, it's been it's been fairly easy, hasn't it, for us, really? We can adapt around that side. But if you look at some of the work the factories have done, around social distancing and that, it's just amazing. And them doing that really early, and how they've adapted to do that has been, they're the real powerhouse behind the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess Chris and Steph, you'll know quite a lot about that, because you sort of had to go feet in first, didn't you, from the beginning? So what kind of changes have you had to make? And how has that been going for you?
So I guess the first thing we wanted to say was that when lockdown was announced, and most of our revenue kind of disappeared, we did consider, actually, shall we just shut down for a few months and furlough everyone and just see what happens in the future. But we very quickly decided against that, and just decided the right thing to do is continue. The brand needs to live, it needs to have a voice, and we need to actually, at the time of need, get back to community. So basically, operation has been open continuously. Obviously, we had to adjust some of the logistics, and for example, we don't produce 7 days a week anymore. We now produce only 4 days a week, and then all the restrictions in terms of space and PPE. So that's all in place, obviously protecting our staff. But I think the key thing to say, the biggest change for us was that we were, before the lockdown, we were 99% business to business brand. And basically going into lockdown, we realized, okay, we can keep it open, but we need to make some sort of money. And exactly what, I'll just echo the thoughts of Neville and Declan. It was the perfect time for us to actually connect with our customers for the very first time, and listen to what they have to say. So we basically launched a B2C model and started delivering directly to our customers across London, and just collecting feedback, collecting thoughts, and basically that's what we are currently still doing, connecting with our community and learning what's the next step in the journey.
It's a very rare.
Oh, sorry, Anya.
It's a very rare moment where I ever wish I lived closer into London, but when I saw the way you guys delivered, I was like,
all right, we're working on bringing it nationwide. Give us a few more weeks. Yes, I guess kind of as Chris was saying, it's been a brilliant opportunity for us to listen and learn. It has been something that's been on our agenda for a while, but I think lockdown gave us the push to really invest the time into it. So we don't feel like we've had that quiet time to just stop and collect our thoughts. It's been a million miles per hour. But one thing that we have learned is it will definitely stay as part of our business post-lockdown. It's really valuable, and it's hugely valuable to our out-of-home and grocery customers as well, having that direct touch point with the consumer and being able to get consumer data essentially that then supports our decisions in those other markets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, last week we talked about the importance of understanding the customer right up front, whether that's the consumer at the end of the, going into the food service operation, or if it's your actual client. And, this way you get to do what a lot of suppliers want, which is to understand both, right? And Heidi, so you guys are effectively a distribution company. So with everybody closing, it must have been an absolute nightmare for you guys.
Yeah, it was quite frightening in the beginning because most of our products have only got 7 days life on them. And with 95% of your market suddenly going, see you later, we don't know when we're going to open again. It was really quite difficult. So we thought very carefully. We were thinking on our feet all the time. We furloughed most of our staff. Being a family business, I've got 3 of my brothers that work with us and my dad. So it was a case of all hands on deck. Okay, what are we going to do here? So as I say, we do have some hospitals and nursing homes, and felt that there was absolutely no way that we would want to shut. We couldn't shut. And we wanted to be able to support people where we can. We had a fleet of vehicles, we had some drivers, right, okay, what can we do? The answer with us wasn't really home deliveries, because that isn't kind of what we're about. And although it might have been a quick fix, it wouldn't have been one that we would have been able to carry on with. So we opened the doors of our facility here up. So we've only ever supplied wholesale, but everybody was struggling to get milk and eggs and bread, and we had loads of it. So it was actually, come on guys, help us, we can help you. So we managed to help a lot of the local community with but both in supplying people home addresses, and also they would come here, and we could go out and help the community a little bit as well, which helped our stock in the beginning. We connected with some of our customers that were doing charity work. We helped people that were doing NHS meals and that kind of thing, so we could supply into there. We did quite a lot with the Caring Foundation, which is the Ivy and Caprice Holdings. They had a mission to supply 1 million meals, but had no wheels for them. So we had wheels, they had meals, we were going out supplying them. And then we'd take the meals onto Felix, and the Felix Project would distribute them. And they did some fantastic work with not only the NHS, but the vulnerable, the homeless and that kind of thing. So we got involved with Westminster Council with some homeless stuff that they were doing. So it really was, as a family business, we've kind of got the opposite, I guess, to the other guys, in that we are quite a lot smaller. We are only within London and the home counties, and we kind of reconnected. But at the same time, and I'm sure you will find the same, we were finding so many of our businesses we couldn't connect with because there was nobody there to connect with. So that's been quite a challenge, but we kept sending out communication and hoping that it was getting to somebody's email box somewhere. And we found that the love that we've got back has just been fantastic, and that's something that definitely will bring out of this, that we found that we've had so much support, and we can support other people, and between us both, I think that's definitely something that that we'll take from it and learn by it. I think the love had gone a little bit with everybody, and even though that we've had the family business, so we'd like to think that we are quite in tune with our customers over the years. Different people come along, but now I think that we've definitely had the opportunity, and my brothers are all out delivering, so they're all out speaking to the customer, and it's great. It's actually been fantastic. And even my 82-year-old father, who should have been in lockdown, there was no way that I was going to ever stop him, he's still out delivering. So yeah, it's actually, as hard as it's been horrific and very challenging. At the end of it, I do feel that we've become even better than we were before.
And actually that leads me brilliantly to the next topic, because actually what I've observed over the last few weeks is a lot of community hand-holding, and wider than that as well, not just communities as in my street, we all know each other's names now, but the community of the coffee shop industry, or the community of the restaurant industry or whatever. And
Yeah.
each of you, as you've just explained, Heidi, some of the amazingly great things you've been doing as a force for good. Each of you have done sort of something in your own communities, and I wanted to touch upon that because it's, you know, A, it's really positive, but B, it just shows that in the height of, you know, one of the biggest challenges we've ever faced in any of our lifetimes, there are a lot of businesses out there that are actually putting their hands out and saying, right, what can we do? So in fact, Steph and Chris, why don't you tell us, because you did something similar in terms of supporting key workers. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that before we move on to Nev and Declan?
Yeah, so I guess we work very closely with the Feelers Project as well, so that's really nice to hear, Heidi.
Oh, brilliant! They were amazing.
Yeah, they're great. They've been our primary kind of partner for the last few years. So yeah, definitely been supporting them through this as well. But obviously, kind of supporting key workers in the NHS has been, I think, the primary call to action for us. Right from the very beginning, literally from the first week of lockdown, we have been sharing or donating fresh and healthy meals to hospitals across London, but also kind of a little bit further afield as well. The feedback we have had from hospitals and from kind of the key workers is they were inundated with donations. However, it did tend to be maybe the slightly more unhealthy kind, pizzas, donuts, etc., which for our kind of frontline staff is not the healthiest option or the safest option for them. So we were really keen to support where we could and provide like genuine nutrition to them to help them keep fueled. Nicely as well, we actually had this organized pre-lockdown, but the campaign went live during lockdown. We partnered with an NHS GP, Dr. Rupi, from the Doctor's Kitchen, and launched 2 limited edition products, which we've been donating to the NHS, but also selling through our own kind of B2C model, with 100% proceeds going to NHS charities. So yeah, it's been a big focus for us.
It's amazing, and what it does also is it just, that goodwill that you put out will eventually come back, because, you know, people see that you're doing that, and more, particularly throughout lockdown and after lockdown, people are, you know, going to be focusing on those suppliers who they feel are giving back, you know, either to their own community or to you know, industries or key workers who are incredibly important. Declan, why don't you unmute yourself and tell us what Alpro has done, because again, I had a little bit of involvement in it, but what you guys have pulled together has been quite astounding as well.
Yeah, so I muted myself because I put the fan on just for a few seconds, and I thought I would just do it. Yeah, so just touching on what we heard before, I think from our side we've always supported Fair Share. We've done that recently as well, you know, and it's quite interesting. We've, again, going back to, you know, providing these guys with something we think is really healthy and being plant-based, and we've been providing them with recipe ideas as well. Because very often people say, how do I use these things? And you think, well, okay, well, let's make it a little more simple as well. So it's good from that point of view. But certainly when it came to supporting the coffee industry, we made a decision very quickly that we think people are going to need help here. So we thought about how can we do that? You know, we can offer free stock to people whenever they come back. But we also realized that, you know, we're only 2 weeks into a lockdown and we can just see the impact that it's having here. So we decided to set up a fund through In It Together. We created that. We did that in conjunction with Allegra as well. They did the administration for it, so we're very grateful for that. And we created a fund of £200,000 to give to stores who were really struggling or weren't getting access to maybe grants, rebates, and really crying out for help. So that was just something that, and you know, Alpro, you know, I applaud Alpro for doing that. It was a bold move at that time, but I think it was something we felt was just right for the trade and right for us to do it. So we had with 3 initiatives. We had the micro influencer for baristas who weren't earning money, and we give money to them to work with us from home. The free stock deal was open to stores whenever they reopened again, and we're probably touching that just as we go forward. But really, the key one for us was to set up the fund, and we invited all the suppliers, you know, no matter how big or small the donation would be, to come and support that. And we're still doing that, by the way. So if anyone knows anyone who'd like to contribute to that, please let us know. So we had over 800 applications for the fund in the first few days.
Wow.
And so we offered £2,500 to each store, you know, to either help with rent or to just to see, you know, staff. supporting them. So yeah, and the reaction has been pretty incredible. If you look at some of the comments that came back, it just goes to show how much people care about this trade, about their business. And really, it's quite heartwarming actually to see the reaction and the feedback that we had, and how grateful people were. So unfortunately, we couldn't help all 800. It was a first come, first serve. But yeah, we'll continue and try and do that, Anya, and just to see how can we keep doing that, because we know we're in this for the long haul. But yeah, so it was just really nice to be involved in that, and I think you can see the benefit to the people who received those funds.
And even if it's just used for things like, you know, the costs, because there's going to be extra costs in, you know, reopening for all of the sort of additional PPE equipment that stores. And we'll hear from Max and Henry and Edwin next week about what that's involved for them sort of properly reopening their stores. So yeah, having a small amount of cash, whether it is for, you know, covering rent or, you know, staff or even going into reopening costs, is absolutely phenomenal. And Neville, I understand you guys also got involved with the supporting baristas through the Barista Care campaign.
Well, I was going to say, firstly, it's quite humbling hearing everyone else's initiatives. From our perspective, yeah, we reached out to Barista Care via, thankfully, your contact. But at that point, with us being chilled, we couldn't give them help with product because it was purely ambient, and that was our biggest hurdle, actually, trying to get our product that was chilled out there. I did help him in another way of reaching out to other suppliers, so he got some ambient stock from previous contacts. But from our perspective, we actually found 6 different charities in and around London where we supplied over 48,000 of our lovely little bottles of product or our yogurts. And we just tried to just stay agile and nimble. Our barrier, as I said, was trying to convince someone to take a bit of complexity to get it to the key workers. And we achieved it through some, you know, great partners who were prepared to take on some of that logistical challenge. So yeah, we're pleased with 48,000 units. There's definitely a long way to go, but hopefully that sentiment of we're all in it together and just being mindful of some of that great work everyone's doing will stay with us and stay with all of us, because yeah, it's crazy what everyone's been through, but those key workers have done some cracking jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, look, who knows, as you say, Declan, what's going to be needed in the future, we don't know, because if we go into a second lockdown and, you know, maybe we'll be better prepared, but and obviously that's something we can't even begin to postulate about. So what I thought we should do is actually think about what's going to be happening in a couple of weeks' time, because it has now been confirmed, obviously, that hospitality can now reopen from the 4th of July, which means lots of businesses are now ramping up for that. And as suppliers, I was curious as to whether or how that has impacted on you, because suddenly, instead of having one new opening to deal with, you might have 1,000 or 50,000 or however many accounts any of you have. Obviously, I don't have information, but you know, given the fact that you've gone from 0 to suddenly, right, we now need to ramp up our distribution, our production for Chris and Steph, and you know, obviously acquiring product for you, Heidi. What does it mean for you in terms of getting ready for all of these stores reopening in a week and a half, 2 weeks, just over?
I don't think everybody's all going to come back together for a start. I think we are going to get quite a phased reopening. I think from our point of view, sorry, I jumped in then, but from our point of view, it's just conversation all the time. Keep talking to us. We're having, most people aren't just saying, oh, we want an order tomorrow. They're saying, oh, next week, how do you, what do you reckon? Do you feel okay about that? We work very closely, as Max knows, with Braid's Farm up in Lancaster, who do our barista milk. That we had to stop for a short while, which was just heartbreaking, because I was so worried about what was going on with farmers, as you know, that was just a horrible episode. So I was really pleased when we could start slowly easing back into that, and now we're nearly back on track with them, which is just great news. And I think it's just, as I say, it's conversation. You know, people they seem to just have a completely different approach coming back into this. I think suppliers are going to have to, our suppliers as well, like yourselves, Max, you know, with any, like Alpro and people like yourselves, I think we've got stock. We're lucky that we've been able to stay open, so we can kind of gradually go through, as other people may not have that. But as I say, from our point of view, I think it's just as much conversation as we can have, you know, talk to us, involve us, and then we can be as prepared as you are.
How about you, Steph and Kristina, because you've got a smaller sort of production system and units, but obviously you have quite a few clients. So are you finding the same thing? Are they phasing, or?
We're finding that we've already seen quite a big increase in June comparing to the disaster of April and May. But agree with Heidi, it will be very much a phased scale up. So we are preparing for quite a big jump in July again. We're actually launching into a new nationwide stockist as well, which is great news because we were a little bit worried about the listing being pushed back into 2021 actually. But we managed to keep it on. And then just bigger scale up again from September, and probably the biggest jump will be January 2021. But for us, we produce fresh every single day. So we are quite agile in that sense, made to order. So it's basically just working very closely with our stockists, understanding their rate of sale and how the forecasts are changing, and being very reactive to that.
The place where we're seeing, I guess, the recovery first is within grocery. So kind of Co-op, and it's Tesco that we'll be launching into in July. And it's our existing grocery clients like Ocado and the independents that we're seeing the recovery in now. Out of home, so we did a lot with the contract catering sector, specifically B&I, but also a bit of travel as well. We are yet to see recovery there. So I think that one will definitely be a bit slower. So different markets coming back first.
I think it'll be interesting as well when you say about the contract caterers, because I think that maybe people might like to stay. So some of where we get involved in contract catering, I think that some of the people that would have gone out for lunch and done different bits and pieces will actually stay in their buildings, eat where they can inside rather than going out. So I think that might balance itself out weirdly, as well as people that are in the office and have got to have meetings. I think maybe they will, as I say, eat at their own restaurants rather than going. So I'm hoping that might help.
Yeah. Heidi, quick question in terms of Braid's milk, because obviously it's a benchmark for us supplying into coffee shops. What percentage of your pre-COVID sales are you at, roughly?
Just with Braids, 2/3 now.
2/3 now.
Yeah, going back in this week. So we used to have 3 trailer loads from them a week, and we're on 2, just about to go into our 3rd one this week.
Wow.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And we've had so much interest as well, like new interest. And I think going back onto what people that have been at home, and maybe they were looking at business ideas and things. We've also had a lot of new customers talk to us about different opportunities that are in the future as well. And so I think, you know, with Braids especially, we've had an awful lot of interest in that product over this time, and so we're hoping that will go above and beyond where we were before lockdown, which is just amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. And actually I've heard that a lot. I've heard a lot of people saying it's a good time to start a new business, even out of home business, because you can go into a premises immediately with all the lockdown requirements and all the social distancing requirements without having to, I guess, readjust to space. But that's a different topic of conversation. So what about going forward then? How do suppliers support into the reopening and beyond? Or and you know, this is just as valid, you know, you guys have got to get money as well, right? You've got to carry on so that you can continue to be suppliers into the future. Do you just go straight back to business as usual? What's the feeling around that?
Well, I was going to say, I think there's a lot, and you called out quite a bit of it already. If we see quite a lot of insight at the moment in terms of lockdown. I think has created people more conscious about exercise, more conscious about their own health, more conscious about how do they spend their time and trying to do good stuff for themselves. So anything that shouts health and wellness, I think, has got a really important part to play with people coming back, either in shopper habits in grocery or in out of home. And I think Pollen, the team there about contract catering and packaged goods, pre-packaged goods. I personally think, anything from these to the ready-made meals, anything that gives the people a bit more confidence about what they're picking up, hasn't been handled too many times, I think will be an opportunity to start off with. Because, and we might touch on this, returning to the office for anyone. I mean, I'm in the office today. We've been very good in how we've staggered our approach, but there's always going to be that, well, for me, there was always going to be an element of anxiety, and your routine changes. So yes, I brought in a pre-prepared meal. I sat at my desk. I go out for some fresh air. But yes, so contract caterers, I know, are adapting. They're looking at pre-packaged. They're looking at how does everything they do fit into health and wellness and mental health and physical health. And for me, that's an opportunity, because we sit in a really good space. And I think all of us on this call sit in the right space of how we can support them and what part we've got to play. And that's, I think, our responsibility now is how we dial it up to show them that we can help them from almost that category perspective, rather than I'm just in it for me type point of view.
Interesting.
Exactly what we're seeing as well, whereby a lot of BNI sites would have traditionally run their own kitchens for that exact reason. They are looking for a pre-packed solution, which seems to be safer, but also allows them to scale up as well without having to bring in like the big kind of infrastructure costs of a full kind of kitchen team on their side. So we're definitely looking at some temporary solutions, which is also spilling outside of the traditional kind of BNI that we're working right into kind of convention centers, hotels, etc.
Yeah, interesting.
Same from our side. I think it's we were lucky enough to do some work with you, I think, Anya, just prior to everything that was going on, and so we've got a good database of customers we can go and speak to now. Stores, we keep in contact with them just to see how is business doing, what do you need from us going forward, and to keep that going. So it could be down to practical things like case sizes, the type of product that they might have an opportunity for that they wouldn't have seen, going back to the food on the go or picking up something that hasn't been handled. So yeah, all of those options are there. So it's quite exciting if that's the case. And even some of the feedback that we have been talking to stores who are starting to go back and have a look at that, where they are getting some sales, they are seeing over-indexing on health, plant-based, etc. So again, that's got to be another opportunity for us to look at that. So yeah, so we'll be using the all of that work you've been doing, Anya, to good effect when we go back. So.
Just in terms of wrapping up then, is there anything in particular that as a supplier you feel is important to share about how lockdown has been for you all?
Part of it is just doing what we're doing, stick to the plan, because very often you can get, it's difficult in some circumstances more than others, but really just believing in what you were doing beforehand and maybe adapting it to some degree. But, I think everyone's got a good business behind us here, and I think it's just really making sure that continues, and we listen to the customers and listen to the stores as we go on, but really to do what we're doing and maybe do it differently and a little bit better. But I think business as usual, just to keep the health and well-being of our own people in good shape as well, to keep it on track.
Actually, that's a really good point, and it's just made me remember that I read something this morning that astounded me about a supplier to it's an alcohol supplier. It's a brewery, a well-known brewery, an English brewery. I'm going to say it, I don't mind, it's Brewdog. They were so scared about the business folding that before furlough, that the founder apparently bought an airbed to spend in his to go and sleep in his office, and so that he could sell his home, etc. And when they realized that things were going to be okay, they obviously furloughed, they did everything, but clearly licensed trade has been particularly badly hit. It doesn't know how we don't know how it's going to pick up, and they have had to make some redundancies, and the amount that they've done to support the small amount of redundancies, honestly, it makes you want to go and get a job there, even though clearly they don't have any because they're making redundancies. And that really heartened me, because it just showed me that even in, you know, real dire straits, if you look after your staff well, even though you're having to let them go, I mean, they did things like, you know, an amazing redundancy package, kept them on medical insurance for a year, free brewdog beer for a year, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want that? And, you know, discount, but all these things that a business doesn't have to do for its staff, right? It doesn't have to do that. And when you think about some businesses that haven't been particularly nice to their staff out there, you know, the fact that just treating your staff right from the very beginning is one of the most essential things. And then that kind of echoes out into the sort of business that you are as a good business, and that means you're a business that people want to do business with, because, you know, you're at the heart of your work. You are looking after the most important people. And I you know, when you see stories like that, that does hearten me, I must admit.
Well, I was going to say, Anya, what you're saying there for me is, you know, the values that you have inside the company should resonate out of the company as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, going back to the previous comment, you know, you should trust, you know, you'd expect me to say this because of, you know, gut health and supporting gut health, but you should trust your gut with what you're doing.
Yeah.
You need to stay agile, and we stayed agile, but yeah, your values should stay strong. And I think you can measure the companies out there, and often, unfortunately, when things hit the fan, and we haven't sworn, so I'm quite glad that I didn't use that phrase, but when things hit the fan, that's when you find out, whether the company has got the true values. So it's you know, it's been a hard slog, but it's been a good slog.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of all of this, there were a lot of calling out and a lot of sort of, this supplier's been terrible, don't ever go back to them. You know, that hasn't happened so much. I haven't seen it so much anyway. And in fact, what I've seen more of is, wow, this business is really doing brilliantly. And that is partly testament to, you know, our industry. We tend to have historically always been a bit of a touchy-feely, huggy type of industry anyway. But also I just think it shows that as humankind, you know, we do good things when we're in challenging times. So with that in mind, thank you everybody for joining. You've had a nice 40-minute chat here, 45 minutes, however long it's been. Next week is our final regular lockdown coffee. I'm saying our final regular lockdown coffee because who knows what's going to happen in the future. We don't know if we're going to go back into lockdown again, full lockdown again, and whether our services will be required, or whether Max even actually ever wants to sit next to me in a Zoom room again, listening to me.
Yes.
But it's a really good one next week. So tune in, subscribe, like, share, all that YouTube stuff. But tune in next week because we have rejoining us Henry Ayres from Gentleman Baristas, who came into our very first lockdown episode with us. He's coming back next week, and Edwin Harrison, who was in our third, and Max, and the three of them are going to be talking with me about what it is meaning to actually reopen. In terms of what they've had to do with stores, how they've had to work with councils, and I know that Edwin's got some really exciting stuff to share, so come along next week, and in the meantime, enjoy the sun everyone, and have a lovely weekend. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.